So we're gonna set the stage in this video. The first thing I want to do is do a little house cleaning, a little homekeeping. I'm going to start by making sure that the objects, as we noticed 2 videos ago, they're moving too fast. So I'm going to make the step to slow my invaders down. So I'm going to go into invader 1-1 and I'm going to put the wait in there. So wait can be found in the control, and I'll pull out the block that says wait 1 second. Now I'm going to drop the time index down to something that's smaller than 1 second, because 1 second is still too long. Let's say 0.5 seconds. And I'll pick this up and I'll put it at the bottom of my loop. And I'll make sure that wait 0.5 seconds is inside of each of my invaders. So wait and wait. Make sure it reads 0.5, half a second. This one is also 0.5, half a second. Drop these in here. And now I'm going to test to see what's the speed like. 0.5 seconds is a little too long. It'll be too easy for the player to actually hit these objects. Okay, so on. He's going to clean up. So we need to make sure it moves a little bit faster than 0.5 seconds. So I could bring this down to, let's say, 0.3, 0.2. Let's make it 0.3 seconds just to keep it in sync. 0.3. And finally 0.3. Now if we test this, it looks like that's decent. It gives the player enough time to actually catch them, and enough time to recover, make errors, and so forth. It's challenging, but not too challenging, and at the same time, it's not a giveaway. All right, so that takes care of the speed problem. Now it's up to you as a designer if you want to make this something. You want to make it move faster, make this 0.1. You want to make it move slower, make it like 0.6, and so forth. Alright, so I'm happy with this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ground. Alright, so let's delete this object. And I'm going to create a new sprite. I'm going to name it ground. So click on I, choose ground, choose to name it ground, go back. Now, there's not going to be a costume per se. I'm not clicking on the line tool and drawing a line at the bottom. I'm going to do that through programming. So I'm going to go to scripts. I'm going to say, well, when the game begins, so that's when flag is clicked, I want to take my pen tool and choose this color for my pen. So my ground, I want to keep it like a greenish color. That's the, I guess, the default. Snap that in. And what do I want to do? I want to draw a line that's pretty slim. So I'll choose the pen size, which says change pen size by 1. I want to draw a skinny, a tiny or very thin line, the green color, along the bottom of the screen. So I've chosen my pen and I've chosen the size of the pen. Now I need to tell it where to put the pen starting points. So the starting point could be down here somewhere, and that's like negative 230, 170, let's say negative 170. So I'm going to go into motion. I'm going to pull out a go to, and I'm going to start at negative 230, and my Y value is negative 170. You may have to modify these numbers, play around with it a little bit till you get something that you're happy with. Snap that in, and I'm going to put my pen down at that point and start drawing. So I'm go back to pen, choose pen down, put it there, and I want to move now. I want to move that pen a certain distance. So I'm going to go to motion, I'm going to pull out move, and since I'm starting at negative 230, I want to terminate at positive 230. That's a total distance of 460. So I want to move 460 steps. And if I would test my code and I would hit play, I get my green line right there. And that's exactly what I needed. Alright, so that kind of like simulates the ground. Now, as I explained before, I'm trying to keep the game as retro as possible, even though I'm using a vector graphic for the ship, and my explosion is a vector graphic, and my laser is a vector graphic. I'm just trying to keep the look as authentic to the, as close to the original as possible. So the original had a little green line at the bottom, put a little green line there myself. Alright, So that takes care of the cosmetic issue of the ground. That takes care of, I took care of the invader speed moving too fast. The last thing I want to do is housekeeping. I want to update the laser because right now if I press the space bar, I don't have any sounds for the laser sprite. Right, I want to hear some sort of laser sound to indicate that my ship is firing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the sound menu and I'll pull out a play sound block. Alright, so play sound. And it comes with a default meow sound for the mascot, the Scratcher Cat mascot. I don't want the meow sound. Alright, so how do I get rid of this sound? I don't have much of an option. I just have to record a meow. I need something else in there. So what I would do is I would go into the third tab which says sounds, and I would click on the first icon that says choose sound from library. Click on that, and Scratch has a bunch of built-in sounds, quite a few that you could play around with. Fortunately for me, they have two laser sounds, so I'll pick the second laser sound. It doesn't matter which, as long as it's a laser sound to me. And I'll click OK. I'll get rid of the meow song by sound by clicking on the X, so the laser sound is the only sound. And if you want to preview it, just hit the play button and you hear that quick sound. Alright, so I go back to scripts and now I could choose laser. And I want the sound to be played outside of the repeat loop. Now if I would drop the play sound laser on the inside, I would hear this sound 35 times. So I don't need that. I need to hear that sound once and only once, and I usually would like to hear it right after I press the space key. So that is working very fine for me. Okay, so now I could continue with the rest of the lesson. I could make sure that I'm really happy with everything else that's here. I could make sure that my the remaining of my game screen is showing, and that's the purpose of this lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and change the title to lesson 5. Actually, first let's put that back. Let's first save as copy, then change this entire thing to lesson 5. File, save now. Great. So now this is lesson 5. So lesson 5, I'm going to put the word score on the screen, the word lives, and I'm going to tie in some functionality for the score um, variable. At the end of this, I'll show you how to add additional invader sprites, so your game will have some semblance of near completion. Okay, so that's a lot of things I want to do. So my first goal is to have the word score appear on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new sprite, paint new sprite, and I'm going to name it score text. Okay, because it has no logic behind it. It's just something that I want to be on the screen as a background graphic. So I have score text, and the reason why I'm creating a sprite instead of painting it onto the background is I want to drag it into place. Right? If it's painted onto the background, you can't move it. So once that's done, I have my editor. I'm going to go ahead and click convert to vector, because vector graphics are much smoother than bitmaps. So I have my tools. The tools jump from, depending on which mode you're in. When you're in bitmap mode, the tools are on the left. When you're in vector mode, the tools are on the right. So in vector mode, I'm going to click on my text tool. Click anywhere in there and I'll type the word score, S-C-O-R-E. Now it's a standard text font. So I'm going to go ahead and select that font and choose a font that I like. I like the default Scratch. I also like Marker. Let's go with Marker. Now, if it's black text on a black background, you're not going to see it. So I'm going to choose another color. Let's go with, let's keep this everything green. So the word score is now in green, and there it is. All right. So I want to keep that, make sure it's centered. So I would zoom in a little bit, and I will click this costume center button and make sure that's right at the center. So that's the center of this object. Now I could go onto the stage, grab the word score, and put it somewhere at the top of the screen like so. Alright, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to repeat this step for the word lives. So I'm going to click on paint new sprite, change the name to lives text, and I'll follow the same procedure. I will come to the editor. I would make sure vector mode is selected. I would choose the text option. The color is still set from before. The marker font is still selected. Click anywhere in there and type the word lives. Alright, make sure it's centered, like so. And now I could grab the word lives and place it somewhere there. Alright, so far so good. Next thing I would like to do is have a running counter for the score. Every time I shoot an invader, I want it to, correctly compute what the score is. So to do that, I'm going to need another sprite. Pardon me, another variable. So I would go into scripts. I would click, it doesn't matter which object you have at this point, right? So I'll just click on scripts, choose data, and then I would say make a variable, just like we did before. And this time my variable is score. And make sure it's selected for all sprites. No, score is just going to be, you imagine it as a box that I want to store stuff in. The stuff that I'm about to put in this special box are only numbers. So score is just a box sitting in memory that we're going to put numbers in. Click OK. And I will leave the checkbox this time because I want this to be on the screen. So once that is made, I want you to right click on it and choose large readout. So that this displays the number for me, it just shows me the number. Drag this into place, like so. So every time I shoot an invader and it gets destroyed, it gets blown up, my score should increment by a certain amount. Alright, so as of the moment, if I would shoot this guy, nothing happens. Score stays at 0. Alright. We need to make sure that something happens. So the way I'm going to set my game up, you could play around with this as much as you like. I'll say the bottom row because there's going to be a row of invaders that are identical to this guy right along the bottom here. I'll say if you manage to shoot any one of those, they're going to be worth 10 points. The row above that, 20 points. The row above that, since they're the hardest to hit, 30 points. So this guy should have a 10-point value. This is a 20-point value, 30-point value. So when this invader gets destroyed, I want to add 10 to that score. So this is the block that controls, the group of blocks that controls when the invader gets destroyed. So when I receive hit 1-1, I want the score to increment. So I want to set score to, not to 0, but to 10 plus whatever was there before. So I would go to the operator, pull out the plus, and I'll go back to data, pull out the score bubble, snap that into the first place. So whatever the score is currently, I would like to add 10 to it. I don't know what that number is, but I know I want to add 10 to it. Then I will pick this group up and drop it in here. So once it's done with its calculation, adding 10 to whatever it is, it takes the result and dumps it back inside of score. So score is always going to be accurately incremented. Now I'll pick this entire orange group up and snap it in right here. So when this invader gets destroyed, 1-1, I'm pointing at the wrong one, this guy, the score is going to go up by 10. Sorry, 1-1 is the top row. I just said I want to make that 30. So let's change this to 30. All right. So we're going to repeat this instruction for the remaining two groups. So here are the steps. I will go to data, pull out the set score, snap that in there. I will go into operators, pull out the addition, snap that in there. I'll go back to data, pull out the score bubble, snap it in there. And since this is the second one, I will make that 20. One more time. I need a score, and I need a set score. I need a plus, and score goes in there. This goes in there, and that changes to a 10. And grab the entire group and I put it in here. Alright, so when 3-1 gets shot, it's only worth 10 points. So let's see what happens once I execute this. There's 10. There's 10 plus 20 is 30. 30 plus another 30, that's 60. Alright, so it works perfectly. However, when I hit the flag, this is a brand new game that just got launched. My score is still stuck at 60. What good is a game if it starts off with score number 100? So we need to make sure that the score gets reset to 0 every time. All right, so I would go to the engine, which is the point that I said is this is the place we initialize everything. So once this game starts, I want to make sure my score is set to 0. So data set score to 0, and this is the initial value of score. So whenever I hit the flag, score is 0 now. And then I could go ahead and shoot some stuff. And if I ask for a new game, the score is back to 0. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. We're going to come in and I'll show you how to do the lives and how to add additional invaders in the next lesson, lesson number 6.